and I'm sure we're hungry about this time right now. So
Yeah, for sure. The nicest desk I had in the entire time I was in the Army happened to be at this Air Force base. It was handed over to the Army. And when I got there, the adjutant of the 17th Combat Aviation Group was Hal Greer. He was a major, and he liked my resume, so he asked me to work in his S1 shop, which is personnel. And I said, I really don't want to do that. I want to go out and fly combat missions. And he said, well, you want to live, don't you? And I said, well, yeah, everyone wants to live. But, you know, I don't plan to stay in the Army for any length of time. I want to build up time so I can go fly for an airline. He said, well, you can work for me for a few months. We'll see how it works out. And, you know, if you do a good job, I'll let you go. You can go fly with a combat unit after that. So I said, well, what choice do I have? Sure, I'll work hard for you. So about 2 weeks later, he comes to me and he says, I'm putting you up for an interview with the colonel. He needs an aide, and I've got 3 of you that work for me that I'm going to put up. And I said, oh, I don't want that, because if he likes me, I could get stuck here for a long time. He says, well, just go ahead and do something to queer it for yourself so you won't get the job. So the interview comes, and I'm midway through the interview, and the colonel says, you're from, I detect an accent. Where are you from, Boston? And I said, no, absolutely not, but I would like to speak like the Kennedys and have their money. Yeah. And he loved it. He cracked up. And wow. I thought I was queering it for myself, but it just worked the opposite, and he hired me. So now I'm this aide, but it saved my life, I'm sure, because I spent 6 months with him, and we became like father and son. And it was a funny story. The first week I worked for him, the number 2 guy at the group was Colonel Culbertson, a lieutenant colonel, and he asked me how I liked working for the colonel and him, and I said, well, I enjoy it, but I really want to be out flying at a combat mission. And he said, well, tell you what, I'll talk to the colonel and I'll let you know what he said tomorrow. So the next day comes, and I asked him how it went. He said, well, the colonel said if you work hard, he'll let you go in 6 months. If you don't work hard, he'll keep you for the whole time. So I said, okay, thank you.
Wow.
So 6 months comes and goes, and I've really enjoyed working for the colonel. And as I say, we became like father and son. And he asked me one day, 6 months into the tour, which I got there on the 15th of June, so it was around Christmas time. He said, hey, Bob, stop over my hooch tonight. I want to talk to you. So I knew something was up, because he never invited me to his hooch before. His hooch was a trailer. He had a trailer, and no one over there had anything like that. I had to live in a barracks kind of place where when I turned on the light, the cockroaches would disappear. And the floor would go from black, which was full of cockroaches, to white, which was the color of the floor. And one day I woke up and there was a rat sitting eating my stomach, you know?
Oh.
Yeah. But anyway, he had his own trailer, which he didn't have to contend with all that stuff. And so I get there, and he poured us a drink, and he said, hey, Bob, I got a question for you. Why would a red-blooded American like you not want to go fight for, be in a unit with fight, be in a combat unit? And I said, oh, sir, don't you remember the conversation you had with Colonel Culbertson? He said, what's that? And I relayed about how if I worked hard, he'd let me go in 6 months. And he smiled, a big smile, like a relief. He said, you know, Bob, that conversation never took place. He was so happy after you got there, because all the workload was off of him. And he was going to keep you, it sounds like. But you don't talk to him, I'll take care of it. And a week later, I got transferred to a combat unit. I got to pick which one I wanted to go. And I made all the assignments for all the officers coming in that were junior grade, meaning not field grade. Field grade in the Army is major and above. So junior grade is second lieutenant, first lieutenant, and captain. So any of those 3 ranks that came in, I had the privilege of assigning them to one of our 4 battalions, couple squadrons, couple battalions, and I picked the squadron were the most fun guys I sent, so I wanted to be with them, and that was I wanted to be in the 61st Assault Helicopter Company. So I went up there and I became Lucky Star 4, and at the air show just recently I got to stand next to Lucky Star 6, which was from my actual unit in Vietnam. When I got to the 61st Assault Helicopter Company, I was with a bunch of great guys, and for the first couple of months I was flying slicks. Now a slick is a helicopter without any guns sticking out the side. That's why they call it slicks. And they mostly flew troops into landing zones, which we called LZs. And they'd be usually long daisy lines, daisy chains of helicopters with maybe 15 helicopters in a long line that would be dropping troops into the LZ. And we'd have the gunships strafing the enemy's guessed out locations, proposed that we thought maybe they'd be there. We'd have them strafe them and along the sides of the LZ. And at night we'd have people dropping flares from up on high. I have a helicopter up at about 3,000 feet kicking flares out. But most of our LZs were daytime drops. And for 2 months I did that. Then for a month I flew medevacs. And that was really dangerous because we had no guns to reciprocate. And the enemy used to like to shoot at that big red star, big red cross we had on there. And so finally, after a month of that, I got to get over to the gunship platoon. And that was really the safest place to be in Vietnam because we had a helicopter with a beefed up rotor system to carry extra weight. And I had 20 rockets on each side for a total of 40. And 2 miniguns, one each side. Each minigun had 6 barrels, and they spun really rapidly so that every 3-second burst would put a bullet down on every square yard of a football field. And then we had a grenade launcher up front, and that was we would zero in with that. We'd fire off a grenade and see where it landed, and then adjust from there. When I was flying gunships, about the worst night I had was Tet of 1972. Tet usually occurs in February, and the worst Tet was the Tet of 1968. The second worst was the Tet of 1972. And I was on standby to be the standby gunship pilot. And what we had was 2 guns and 1 flare ship that we were on standby. So a little area of rough puffs, which are the regional forces, which are the Vietnamese soldiers, was being attacked by an NVA regiment from the west. And the NVA regiment was 450 guys with AK-47s, and it was a reinforced regiment, and the reinforcement was an anti-aircraft company which had 6 51 caliber machine guns. And the reason they had 51 caliber instead of 50 was so that if they overran our positions, they could use our 50 machine gun ammo. But if we overran their position, we couldn't use their 51s. It would jam our guns. And that was given to them and suggested to them by the Russians. Very interesting affiliation there. But anyway, we got bounced, which is meaning we went to go fly for a group in trouble. And we ended up flying from 10 o'clock at night until 10 o'clock in the morning, every hour 20, rearming and refueling. And I was in the left seat and had the miniguns, and every 3-second burst would put a bullet on a football field, every yard, every square yard. And the interesting thing is, the very first time we rolled in from 1,500 feet to break at 400 feet and go around again on a racetrack pattern is what we did. From the first time we rolled in, I pulled the guns and shot, and they maybe got 3 bullets out and it jammed. And so it didn't unjam. Every time we stopped, every hour 20, we tried to unjam it, And guess what it unjammed? When the mission was over, it started firing again. So I kind of feel like that was God protecting me from knowing I killed anybody. I would have killed a bunch of people with that minigun that night. So I feel good about that.
So if those weren't amazing stories to tell, I don't know what is. This is the reason that one should go visit an air show, a museum, and get to talk to people that have these authentic stories to tell, because they're not going to be around forever. So go do it. Thank you, Bob, again for taking the time to spend with me and to share some of the stories that you have to tell. It was a really great experience for me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.